Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Other Way. I am so beyond excited to welcome my next guest. I finished recording a little while ago, and I swear I blacked out by the end of it. I was preparing for my intro segment, and I had to spend quite a bit of time collecting my thoughts to recap the themes we covered because my next guest and we entered a state of cosmic flow in this conversation. I felt like time just flew by, and I remember wrapping up this interview just thinking, oh my gosh, this conversation is so juicy. Today, I'm speaking with Emily Green, aka Emily the Medium, who is a highly acclaimed psychic medium. She specializes in supporting families, in connecting with the energies of their children, or what's known as spirit babies, at all phases of their journey, whether they're struggling with fertility challenges in the preconception phase or while they're pregnant. We covered so much. We talked about spirit babies. What are they? How do they show up? We discussed why diving into the spirit realms or energetic realm is so crucial on any fertility journey. I think this one is really important because a lot of time and effort is put into talking about the physical aspects of fertility, yet there is also a deeply spiritual component as well. We talked about the energetics of conception and miscarriage. We discussed if spirit babies pass us by, or do they evolve in some way, or are we connected to a consistent singular being? We covered the energetics of miscarriage, the 2-week wait. We talked about if spirit babies propel our evolution, and if so, how. And we also explored who spirit babies connect with. Is it the mother figure, the father figure, the couple as a whole, the family unit? How does that look like in same-sex couples, etc., and so much more. So if you're looking to dive deep into this concept, today's episode is definitely for you. And I'd also say that this is not just for women or for couples who are out there trying to conceive, but I think it's relevant for everyone across all stages of this journey, single people as well. Without further ado, let's welcome my next amazing guest, Emily, to the podcast. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kasia. I'm so happy to be here with you on your beautiful show. I'm excited for this conversation.
Me too. Me too. I have so many questions for you. And these are both questions that I've come up with, but questions that have come in from my community. So there is just so much to cover. But before we dive into all of that, let's start with my favorite question, which is what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
This is a great question, and I had to think about it a little bit, as I'm sure most of your guests do, because yeah, I don't know. I found it difficult just to be like, oh, how would I describe myself outside of a business sense? And what I came up with, a word that I've been playing with a lot lately and applying it to myself, my personality, my essence is alchemy. So I would say alchemical. I'm very good at like taking things and turning them into other things. And I would say another word is like assertive. That's something that I have come into more throughout my life. I would have never used that terminology to describe myself 10 years ago. So that is something that I've really embraced about myself, that I am an assertive person and I know how to advocate for myself and to pursue what I'm interested in and all that kind of good stuff. So I would say that. And then I think the third word is dreamy. 'Cause I've got this mystical part, which is probably not a surprise to anyone, but I've got this mystical, like I love to just daydream, look at nature, look at the sunset, and just let my mind wander. So yeah, I would say those are my 3 words, at least right now.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I also so appreciate you calling out the fact that this question is a challenge to find the words to describe yourself from the
Mhm.
context of like beyond work. Because that's
Yes.
something, I mean, that's obviously not the theme of this particular episode. I mean, we could go there, but
Yeah.
it is just, I think, so difficult to do. And I reflect on this personally as well. Like, I just came back from Esalen this past weekend. And one of the things that I found so refreshing while being there is that the question of what do you do came up so far into the conversation. And so I
I love
appreciate you naming that and also choosing words that kind of go beyond that because some of those surprised me, right? Not the
yeah.
dreamy one, but the other two.
Yes, I love it. Amazing, and I love that you said too because that's often the I mean, you meet somebody and that's like the default first question, right? And for me, it's sometimes depending on who I'm talking to, I'm like, "Hey, how am I fielding this question right now?" So I love that. I think that's such a great focus and like understanding our personality, how we present to the world outside of just a who are you? What do you do? What's your productivity in the world? How are you creating in the world? So thank you.
But I do wanna noodle on this a bit
Yeah.
because the work that you do is very personal, right? Like, as a spiritual medium, right? Someone who is, like, highly acclaimed, someone who specializes in, like, a very nuanced side of mediumship. Can I say that? Is that, like, a
Yeah.
correct term?
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel like there is like such a personal, deeply rooted aspect to the work that you do. How do you kind of balance who you are with what you do? Or is that still a struggle? I'm actually so curious because we have a lot of women listening, especially who do work in the healing space. And I feel like this is just such a relevant question for everyone, but especially if the work that you do also touches on the essence of who you are in a way, right? Like these are innate skills that you've come to the world with.
Such a good question. I think for me, I've been in my practice for almost a decade. And so there's been a lot of, I guess, transformation along that path of how I relate to that question. And I think at the beginning, I was definitely somebody who just like completely had my identity merged with what I did. And that wasn't a bad thing. It just, there was absolutely no separation. It was like, it was all enmeshed with each other. And what that created is I definitely got burnt out and I definitely I lost any semblance of how to do things for fun. It was just like mm, it was my only like I didn't people would be like, "What are your hobbies?" I'd be like, "I don't have any hobbies," because this is what like my work is my hobby. So what I've really had to rediscover is like who am I outside of what I do, and it's hard because I've always been a deeply spiritual person, and so they go hand in a sense, but I think I consistently have to find ways to have my own spiritual practice and my own relationship to my work. And of course, there's passion within my work. So that extends outside of what I do. And I've had to rediscover like hobbies and what I actually like to do for fun and what to do in idle moments. Because again, like I said in the beginning, in idle moments, I would be like, wow, I could just work. Or I just love this so much, I'll just create something. And so I really had to separate those 2 things and just rediscover really my identity and how I used my time outside of just work time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Truly. That's something that I will share that on a personal level, I am definitely working through and have been exploring myself around not allowing my entire identity and worth to come from what it is that I produce. I feel like that is a strangely very Western concept
True.
because of how work has become a religion. And obviously, with what you're doing, I mean, like, what a rewarding
Yes.
career to have, and what an incredible gift you have to be putting that into the world. But to still allow your identity to go beyond that is, I love that you spoke to this. It's
Yeah.
really helpful,
Thank
truly.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's shift gears here and actually talk about some of what it is that you do because I'm like on the edge of my seat as I like try to look casual here because I cannot wait to hear about it. So, as I mentioned, you are a highly acclaimed psychic medium and you specialize in supporting families to connect with their spirit babies. I would love to start with what is a spirit baby? I feel
Mm.
like everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people listening might not be familiar with the concept.
Yes, thank you. So spirit babies is not a term that I personally coined. It is the most universally known concept of this topic, which I'll explain more about. But it was actually a term coined by someone named Walter McKishin, who wrote a book called Spirit Babies that was published in 2005, I believe it was. I always forget the publish year. And so he unfortunately passed away in 2011, but he did this work that he worked with families who were looking to conceive, and he's got a great book about it. It was something that I discovered shortly after I discovered what a spirit baby was and that I was already doing it, and it was incredibly eye-opening for me. I'm just like, "Oh, this is a thing," because for whatever reason, early in my career, when I was just doing regular mediumship, it didn't even occur to me that it was possible to connect with spirit babies. So, my definition or how I relate to this term is a spirit baby is a soul. Technically, we were all spirit babies once. We all spent time in an energetic space before we came into the bodies that we're in now. We looked at our future families, we looked at our lives, we looked at the geographical locations, we looked at our life circumstances, and we said, "Yes, I'll choose that." And then once that yes was locked in, we began the process of creating a conception bond, starting to connect with our future family until we are eventually born into this body at the time that we were. And so a spirit baby is a soul that is in a space before birth. This can also be following a loss. This can also be way into the future, even if this is 10, 20, 15 years before the person even actually conceives this child. So, a spirit baby is a soul who is essentially looking or waiting or has been at one point linked to a pregnancy or will be linked to a future pregnancy.
Oh, wow. I mean, there's a lot there. I
Yes.
feel like for a lot of people, the concept of a soul must feel very daunting. I'm curious, you shared that this is the concept of connecting with a spirit baby was very foreign to you at one point. How did that come through? If you want to share maybe a little bit of the backstory, because
For
I mean,
sure.
I don't feel very honed in or connected to any sort of psychic powers myself, but I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I still tell this story because it was such a defining moment in my practice because I was trained as a medium. It was just like, you connect to people's loved ones who are passed away, and that was really the only concept that I had of spiritual communication. Of course, I understood spirit guides and so on, but spirit babies was just so not on my radar. I mean, it was not even anything, although I had my own experiences, but I wouldn't have ever used that term or I would have never had that understanding. So, a couple of years into my practice, like I said, I was practicing mediumship and working with all kinds of different people, and I was doing some energy healing work as well. And I had a woman come to me and we opened up the session and she just said, "I'm looking for clarity." And I was like, "Great, we can do that." Wasn't sure where she wanted to take the session. I always just show up to the table and attune to the person in front of me, and we just see what happens. And it can go in many different directions. And that day it definitely did. I had basically the first thing that I had an experience of was this little girl who came forward. I can still remember exactly what she looked like, her face, hair, dress, everything. And I started describing this energy to this person, and she was like, "I have no idea who you're talking about." So I was thinking still, like, this is a child that was connected to her at some point. She maybe lost a child, maybe someone in her family lost a child. So I'm trying to figure out who this child is. And we keep talking, and I go back to the energy that I'm working with. I'm like, "Help me out here because she doesn't know who you are. And I know you're here for a reason because you're not going away." Sometimes I'll have energies come in and they'll just say hi, but they're not actually for the person and it's fine and they move on. But she wasn't moving on. And so I said, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And she said, "Ask my mom about her miscarriage." So I said, "She's asking me to ask you about your miscarriage." And she said, "Yeah, I did have a miscarriage about 6 months ago. And I always felt it was a girl. Could that be her?" I went back to the energy. She was like, "Yes, it is me. I was the energy that was connected to that miscarriage." I still get goosebumps talking about it. So anyway, the session went on and this energy just started giving me all kinds of information about the miscarriage, about the pregnancy, why it couldn't continue, why she had to leave, that she wouldn't be coming back, but that she would be sending in a brother for her other sibling. She already had a son, but she'd be sending in another brother. And 3 months later, I got a message from this client and said, "I'm pregnant, it's a boy, and now they have a beautiful family." And this spirit baby basically orchestrated all of that, and one of the things that we figured out through the session is that in order for this mom to conceive again, she needed to have this connection with this energy. There was still some unfinished business there. They needed to know about each other, she needed to know about her, and that's why she came forward. What she didn't tell me at the beginning of the session when she said she was just looking for clarity is that trying to get pregnant was her number one focus in her life at that moment in time. And that's really what she wanted to focus on. I didn't know that. I just thought, well, we'll explore whatever. So this energy obviously knew that and knew her intention and also knew that there was something that they still needed to work out. And so that's why she came forward. So that was my first experience. Literally a week later, I got a referral from somebody else. I didn't know what the referral was for, got on the call. Of course, it was a spirit baby thing. And from there, it was just the floodgates were opened. They just kept coming, like, in sessions that I could have never expected, that's what would have happened. A 60-year-old woman who lost a pregnancy 30 years ago, just they kept coming and coming. And so I literally just shifted my practice because I was like, "This is where my energy is needed right now," and I was getting lots of information towards the end of 2019 around I was I just kept getting this feeling like it's time to shift your focus to this completely. Like give all of your attention to these people, these families who need support on their conception path. I was like, why is it so important? And they just kept saying, you'll see. And I think that what I have found on this path and in this work is that my energy is so much better used in this field that there's so many amazing mediums in the world. There's so many beautiful people doing so much amazing work for people who have lost loved ones. And while I still feel a passion for that area of that focus, I just kept hearing from Spirit, they kept saying, this is where help is most needed. These families, these women, these spirit babies, they need help. And you can help to facilitate that. So that's how it all happened. And that's how it all began.
Mm. I feel like I'm getting chills just listening to this. I mean, that is such a wild story and also so deeply vulnerable to bring up this vision because I'm guessing that's definitely something that the woman was not expecting at
No.
all in
Mm-mm.
that conversation. And I feel like it brings up such an important theme, which is that I mean, in our society, there's such a focus right now on fertility and fertility struggles. And I think the journey that a couple or a family may go through in trying to conceive. And I mean, the kind of miscarriage rates are quite high these days. And I feel like there's a huge focus on the physical, like what needs to happen there, and almost like a forgotten aspect of the energetic and the spiritual. I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the themes that come up? What is like, why is this spiritual realm so important in the journey, in like a fertility journey, or perhaps also beyond, right? So for those who miscarry to actually connect with these spirits or spirit babies after the fact. Like, why is this so vital for us to start to explore this?
Great question. And you're right. There is such a huge focus on the physical, which I think is equally as important. There's a focus on that for a reason. I think so many of us are needing support. One of what I have heard time and time again from so many fertility educators is that this world and how it's set up now, our modern world is not supportive of our reproductive biology of we don't have a world that supports like fertility, really. So I think that is a really important aspect. And while I don't necessarily I have a passion for it and I'm interested in it. I don't necessarily specialize in it. I hit the other side, which you're alluding to, which is more of understanding more of these energetic, spiritual, and emotional aspects. And when I was beginning this work, I mean, I started working with people naturally who were going through fertility treatment. I didn't even know what IVF was. Like I had to like Google it. I was like, what is this? I didn't even know. People were using all of these fertility terms. So I got like a very quick education in fertility and fertility treatment because I was working with so many people who were going through these experiences. And something that came up time and time again is the spirit babies would tell me at the beginning, they would say people were coming to me with a diagnosis of unexplained infertility. And what they would say is, well, they don't have unexplained infertility. There's just things that need to be worked out between the spirit babies and their parents. And that was what they said was the cause. That was the reason. Why am I not getting pregnant? The doctors tell me everything looks good. My tests all come back normal. My partner's tests all come back normal. Why is this not happening for me? And the spirit babies will say, well, we got to work this out. We got to look at this. We got to look at this. We got to look at this. And what I have gathered and what I have found over so many years of doing this is that while there definitely are some themes, there are definitely some threads that we could connect from person to person. But what I have found is that when I tune in to the people I'm tuning into, the spirit babies always have a very unique way of explaining what the issue is or why they aren't here yet or why a person continues to have miscarriages. It's so unique to the individual family and to the spirit baby, is what I'm trying to say. And again, there are some themes. I think one of them definitely is like through a fertility experience. I think many people, especially women, we are going through this experience as a way to reclaim our understanding of just how powerful of creators we actually are. And that this ability to not even just to have a baby, but just to be fertile, like to have a fertile body, to have a fertile mind, to have a fertile, like, it's not just a physical thing, to be able to create in this world and to have that option, even because so many people are like, I don't even know if I want children, but I want to know that if I do decide that I want to call a baby in, that I'm in a good place to be able to do that. So I think there is this real theme that I'm seeing around so many women, especially reclaiming their Shakti energy, their divine feminine energy, their ability to create and to believe in their body, believe in the intelligence of their bodies over maybe what somebody is telling them about their body. I think that's another huge theme. Heard in my practice so many times. The doctor says I can't get pregnant. I can't get pregnant naturally. I have to do fertility treatment, and the second that they have a real felt lived experience of, I trust the intelligence of my body, I trust the timing of my spirit babies, and I am just open to the unfolding. I'm not attached to how this unfolds. They get pregnant. So, and which I know is so hard. I mean, I think surrender on this path is one of the hardest things that we can do. And also, when we can find that sweet spot of what that feels and looks like for us, I think it can be really magical. Whether or not it ends in an immediate pregnancy, maybe it still takes some time, but the journey gets to be so much more enjoyable. And so I think that as a whole, like on a really big picture level, that's one of the things that I see happening for a lot of women right now. We're moving from this era of like disempowerment to empowerment again, and women throughout history, really, you can sense so many themes of this, of like disempowerment and this sort of thing. And I think we're just having another upgrade of that in a way. So that's one of them. I think that a lot of it as well has nothing to do with the individual. It has everything to do with the soul and what it is that they need and what they need to do before they come, how they need to feel before they come. A big thing, and it sounds so simple, but it really does make a difference, is timing. Is a spirit baby needs to feel that the timing is correct for them to enter into a family, and that can be both for the individuals and like the parents and where they're at on their path. Maybe there's still, I've seen this a lot, where an individual still needs to have an awakening of sorts. They still need to have a transformative experience of sorts in their life. They need to address a childhood trauma that was never able to be recognized until this moment in time. They need to clear up something in their relationship with their partner that has never been able to be addressed. So, timing is a big one. There's another tangent that I wanna go off on of that, I'll come back to it, but timing is a big one for both the people, but also the spirit babies. So, people will say, "Well, why aren't they coming? Why aren't they here yet? We've been waiting, we're ready, we're ready, we're ready." And while we may be ready and while may be open, also doesn't necessarily mean that spirit or that soul is ready at the same time. They still may need to do a certain preparation or have a certain level of readiness in and of on their own. Something else I see is that they're waiting for a very specific cosmic or astrological window. They're waiting for a specific larger astrological movement to occur. They're waiting for a specific shift to occur on Earth in a lot of different ways. Many energies came in 2020. Many energies are going to be coming in 2025 and 2026. So, and have been waiting for those periods of time. I was just talking about this on my podcast and on social media in the last few days. So, those are a few things. And what I want to come back to is that a lot of people then, as I'm start talking about this, they start to say, well, how do I know? Like, how do I know what how do I know if it's a timing thing? Is it something that I need to look at? Is it an issue between me and my partner? Is it a boundary issue? What is it? And what I will say is that many people say that the second question that I get a lot is, how do I communicate with them? Right. And I'm sure we'll get to that more in depth. But basically, as a spirit baby is preparing for conception, this can even be years in advance. This can be 5 years, sometimes even as long as 10 years before actual conception. Is that I want people to know that they are already working through you. They are already moving through you and your partner. They are influencing you. They are sending you these little subtle signs and signals of like, hey, look at this. I need you to address this. I need you to look at this. I need you to deal with this. I need you to realize this. So it's so fascinating and it's very subtle. We probably wouldn't, if we didn't know how to recognize this, we probably would just consider this to be the voice of our intuition saying, hey, go here. But what I see is that spirit babies actually, well, for a period of time leading up to conception, they'll almost work through the voice of our intuition in order to guide us and to direct us in the correct sort of areas that we need to tend to and to give our love and attention to. And it's different for everyone. But that's what I would say is just even if you feel like you haven't had like, oh, how do I know I have spirit babies? Or I've never felt one, I've never seen one, I've never had a dream about one, please know that they are already, if you have an intention to have a family at some point in the future, they are already working through you and your partner. They are already moving the pieces around. I call it like they're moving the cosmic puzzle pieces around in order to create the circumstances eventually that you all need in order to create this life, to create this, to welcome this life into the world. So that I know that's a very long answer to your question, and I'm sure there's a few different places we can go from there, but that's what I would say in terms of what I see the most.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so much there. I'm like, I don't even, I feel completely like, whoa. I wrote down so many questions as we were going. I mean, excuse me as I cough a bit. That is just so wild, A, to consider. I mean, I love that you mentioned the fact that spirit babies start to connect with us, like, could be years into the past, and that it's, as you mentioned, like, such a deeply personal journey for every single family, every single couple to go through, not just the connection process, but also the evolution that needs to happen at a emotional, spiritual, energetic, or circumstances level to make that timing correct, to make that kind of entry correct. I feel like maybe the next place I'd love to go is, do spirit babies connect with an individual, with a couple? Is there one that follows each person in the relationship throughout time? Like, what
Yeah,
does that look like? And does
right.
that evolve actually
Yeah.
too?
Fantastic question. I love this. It's one of my favorite things to track and to look at. So it's different for everyone, and I know I say that a lot, and I say that a lot on every person that I talk to, and I think it's really important to stress because I think sometimes people hear me talk, and I think they think like, "Oh, that's gotta be my situation, or that's gotta be mine," and I just really wanna leave space for it might be, and also it may be more unique to you than you think it is. So just keeping that in mind. So what I've discovered is that there are something called primary and secondary links and joint links. So I'll explain what this means. A primary link is a spirit baby's primary link to an individual. I will say most of the time, I see the primary link as being the feminine counterpart, the woman in the partnership, although in same sex relationships, that can slightly change and that's more nuanced. But for the most part, I see the primary link being to the carrier of the child, and then the secondary link ends up being the other partner, the masculine counterpart in the relationship. Now, that's most of the time. I would say that's 80% of the time. But I've also seen spirit babies who are linked to the masculine counterpart first. And then when they come together with their partner at some point in time, then they will also link to the feminine or the female counterpart or the other partner in the relationship. So I think it really does just change and it depends. And there's a lot that goes into it. Is this a soul family connection? Meaning, is this an energy that has already been linked to this individual? They've had experiences together. We could say they've had lifetimes together and they're looking to come in again with this individual and then join this other partner and creating this new link to them where they're new to each other. So it's It changes. I have seen that a spirit baby is linked to both partners as well, even before they've met each other. So I had this one spirit baby one time say, I linked to my mom when she was 6 years old, and I linked to my dad when he was 12. And they met when they were like 25. And when they came together, then that just everything solidified and everything locked in. So it's really cool, and it's like it sometimes takes a minute to get your mind around it, but most people will say I've talked to a lot of people who they have felt their whole life this connection to a spirit baby or their future child, and they've always dreamt about them, saw them when they were a kid, on and on. And then they eventually meet their partner, and then that spirit baby will start that connection and the communication with the partner as well. So they'll start coming into the partner's dreams, they'll start coming into the partner's meditations because they are making a link with that person as well now. They're creating that link, they're creating that connection with that individual. So yeah, it's super fascinating. It's super interesting. I had this one story of this couple who they met when they were quite young, like 19. And I was talking to their spirit baby that they've been married for like 10 years. And they asked the question of like, when did this spirit baby choose us? And I saw this the spirit baby showed me this. I was, like, on the ceiling of a hockey arena, and I was looking down at the crowd, and I'm saying, "They're showing me, like, a hockey arena, and I'm looking down at the crowd, and does this make sense to you?" And they were like, "Yeah, we met at my husband's her now husband's, like, hockey game." And so that was the moment, that was the moment, like, when they met, the spirit baby made the link to both people, to both individuals in the relationship. Before they had even started dating, it was the moment that they met, the moment that their two energies came together. So again, I think it's like it's different for everyone, but those are just a couple examples that maybe contextualize that question a little.
No, I think that there's something so, like, deeply karmic about it, having it be not just perhaps in some cases the individual, in some cases the couple, but to have that kind of connection be so firm.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you ever see an evolution of the spirit baby connection? And what I mean by that is I feel like this is such a classic our society FOMO type of question where I'm sure that there are people out there who are like, "Oh my gosh, like, did I miss my window? Or have I not found the right partner? Or was my spirit baby present, but now it's moved away and another spirit baby is coming in?" Like, how does that is there an evolution to the human spirit baby connection? Does that change if circumstances change? Like, what is some of the theory behind that?
Yeah. Great question. So it's it definitely does evolve. It absolutely evolves. And what I would say is that before it's my experience, it's my understanding that before we come into our bodies, us as individuals here, adults, that we have these specific themes, contracts, experiences that we set out for ourselves. Now, it's like having a plan before you go into it's like if you are entering into, like, a really busy concert, let's say, and you're going in with your friend and you're like, "Okay, let's not lose each other, like, let's hang on to each other, okay?" And then you get in there and just everything goes totally sideways. You lose each other, your phone's dead, you can't find the plan has to change, it has to evolve because you've entered into this new experience that's like, "Whoa, this is way crazier than I thought it was gonna be." So it definitely does evolve. Things change, energy moves around. And I think that is mostly positive that our spirit babies can be adaptable if we are in a partnership and we think that we're going to marry this person, have children with this person, and then things go sideways and we leave that relationship, it doesn't mean that the spirit babies that were linked to us or that person are going to leave and then we won't be able to have children again. What I've seen is that spirit babies that they're very adaptable, they're very flexible. They can usually make most things work with some compromises sometimes. And they will wait for the next window. I'm thinking of a client right now who was never interested in having children, ever, did not want children, and I knew that. And one day I sat with her and hadn't seen her in a while. And I was like, "What's going on? Because all of a sudden you have a spirit baby around you." She was like, "Yeah, well, I met someone. And it's the first time I've ever considered having children. It was never on but if I were to have children, I would have it with this person." And unfortunately, that relationship didn't work out for her. And I think that was really difficult because she was like, she felt that possibility for the first time in her life that she had never felt before. And when that relationship ended, this she felt like, oh, I don't feel that connection the same way. And I think it is that certain people at certain moments will unlock this possibility and this opportunity. And it doesn't mean that opportunity, that possibility won't come again with a future partner. It just means that at that specific moment in time, there was like some magic happening. And that spirit baby was ready. They were in favor of the what was happening in the relationship at that point in time. And so there was this magical feeling. She was like, this is crazy. I've never felt this before. And she feels like she feels open to feeling it again now, which before she was not at all open to. So I think that's a good example of just like how that can evolve. Now she's in a place where she's open to a relationship. She'd also be open to having children if she got that feeling again where she could feel this energy and there was that magical opening and possibility. So it definitely evolves. And I think that you're right. I do get that question a lot as well of like, I'm worried that I miss my chance. That I hear that a lot. I'm worried I missed my chance. I'm worried I waited too long. I'm worried, not just like from a biological perspective, just like an energetic perspective. I'm worried I missed the window. And what I'll say is that for one energy, maybe that particular, like we said, that particular moment in time has passed. Doesn't mean that there won't be another one. And it also doesn't mean that there isn't another energy. I call them free agent energies. Okay, so we have this like soul family and we've got this like group of souls who are yeah, okay, we'll see each other again. But also at this point in time, there's a lot of these free agent energies who are looking for families. They're looking for environments to come into. They're looking for parents. And I hear this a lot with a lot of children that I talk to because that's one of my favorite ways to gather information is to talk to children. And I really trust children. I trust what they say, which I know is not the popular opinion. It's they say the darndest things, but if you really listen to children, they have a lot to say and they have a lot of wisdom to share. And what I've heard from many children that I've talked to in the last handful of years specifically is they say, I was floating in space and I didn't have a mommy or a daddy, but then I saw my mommy and daddy and I knew that I was going to choose them. And I hear that again and again. So know that if you are like, I don't feel any spirit babies around me, or I've never really wanted to have children, but now I'm open to it, it's likely that there's a newer energy, this free agent who is choosing to open up a connection with you. And so really like there's so much possibility at the same time, and I think that can be, like, really that can feel really hopeful for a lot of people who maybe have not felt so hopeful about their experience thus far.
Oh, I love that term too. A
Yeah.
free agent. How adorable. So, speaking of possibility, I
Mhm.
feel like a big elephant in the room is, and I know is the very painful experience that a lot of birthers can go through, which is loss, miscarriage. Does a spirit baby ever come back? Like, what I mean, I know it's so personal for every single person out there, but what is typically happening or what could be some of the things at play even at a
Mhm.
high level
Uh-huh.
in those situations?
Yes, so spirit babies definitely come back after miscarriage, which is usually very comforting to anybody who has ever had one and felt a deep connection to the energy that or to the baby that they're carrying. Miscarriage is There are, of course, physical pointers to miscarriage. There's a lot of different reasons why a pregnancy could end from a physical perspective. A lot of times, spirit babies will say that. I just worked with a woman last week who she's in many miscarriages. And her most recent one, she felt so different. She was like, I feel something's really special about this one. And it still ended in miscarriage. And so we had a conversation. And was talking to her spirit baby, and he was like, you weren't wrong. There was something really special about this one. And I was going to stay but then something was happening to my body and it just wasn't right. And the next day she got her miscarriage kit back and it turned out that the body of that growing fetus had a chromosomal abnormality and it just wasn't going to be right. So there are experiences like that physically. Miscarriages happen. They're heartbreaking and they happen. And sometimes there is strictly just a physical pointer. Now, there are spiritual and emotional reasons that miscarriage can happen as well. A lot of the time, it's like committing to something. an energy commits to an incarnation, they say, okay, I'm going to do this. And they make it happen. And it's like, whoa, this is a lot all of a sudden. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And we've gotten a lot of these kind of newer, like I said, energies, free agent type energies who are joining us now. And they're new to this thing, this whole thing. They haven't done it before. They're figuring it out as they go. And sometimes there can just be, even if they think they're ready and they're like, okay, let's do this, they can sometimes change their mind and need a little bit more time. And so a lot of spirit babies that I talk to say, I'm so sorry. I had to go. It just wasn't time yet. I felt really scared. I wasn't feeling confident. I need a bit more time. So I hear that all the time. Another reason for miscarriage energetically, and I'm seeing this a lot actually, especially this year, is a lot of people that I'm talking to who are trying to or who are going to be first time moms, they have a miscarriage right before they conceive and carry their first child. And usually in very quick succession. So they'll have a miscarriage in September and they conceive in October. Or they have a miscarriage in September and conceive in December. And so I'm seeing this a lot. And it ties into what I just said of, okay, I just need a minute. And if you give me a minute, then I'll be ready again very soon. It also is that they need time to, it's like thinking about these big, beautiful, bright, intelligent energies. They're, a lot of them are very, what I would call high souls. They're very evolved in a lot of different ways. And they sometimes require some tweaking or some fine tuning to how they're actually bringing their energy down into this physical experience, into the mother's body, into this physical realm. Something that I've been told again and again, and that I know through my own experience, is that this space, this three-dimensional earth space, is very dense. And so for these like high energies, it's if you are like riding this high and you're super high vibe, and then all of a sudden you meet somebody who's just like you can just feel it where your energy comes down. And that's not a bad thing. It's a necessary part of this transition from heaven to earth, but some of them need more time working that out and fine-tuning that. I would say the other thing is that miscarriage can and is a catalyst for so many people. I can't tell you the amount of people who say, I am so glad that I didn't get, they say this, and obviously this is, if you're going through a miscarriage currently, you're probably not going to be feeling this. You're not going to be feeling connected to this energy, but people will say, I'm so glad I didn't get pregnant then, because what has happened between that miscarriage and when the baby actually came in, I'm a totally different person. I am the parent that I want to be for this child because of this transformation through this miscarriage. So I think it can be in some situations a catalyst, albeit it begins very painfully. But what I see a lot is that it eventually transforms into this real beauty where some people can actually accept their miscarriage and accept that, okay, there is something important that happened here. And I'm a different person because of it. And that's not only just for myself and my own life, but also for this child and for their life eventually. So there are so many other threads. Again, so personal to each individual spiritually and emotionally. I almost never get the same answer when I talk to a spirit baby and say, how come you couldn't stay? It's always different. It's always communicated differently. It's in their own language, in their own words. It's their own concept of this experience. But there is always love and compassion for the family. And they always start with, I'm so sorry. And I know how hard this is for you. And I'm sorry you're in pain. And I really don't want you to be hurting, but here's what I can offer you to help with your healing. That's almost always how it goes. There's a lot of love and compassion. And sometimes people think when they have a miscarriage, does my spirit baby not want me? Are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? And that's never the case. That's never the case, because I think there can be this real feeling of like abandonment almost. This is what I talk to a lot of women who say, that they feel abandoned by their spirit baby. Like, why did you leave? We were here. I've been wanting to get pregnant for so long, and then I finally did, and it ended in loss, and how could this happen? And so they often just say, I haven't left you. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still right here. And they often will stay really close until the next opportunity or possibility is worked out.
Mm. I think that is so important and helpful to hear, because I think for those going through that experience, I myself included, like there's an aspect of feeling like, okay, I did something wrong, or at least speak in first person here, or that maybe it's not meant to be and things like that. And so I love that you mentioned that there's so many circumstances, and also sometimes the reasons are so nuanced for
Yeah.
like our own life path. And that is so, so true. Like I can speak to that on a deeply personal level. I mean, I think that is just so important to call out. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's and just sharing your experience because I think when we I mean, so many people I mean, the miscarriage rate is really, I mean, quite I think it's like 1 in 3 at this point, and then may have
I think
even
it is. Yeah.
I think it is. And that's I mean, that's huge, and of course, like we said, there's these physical components, but also there are these energetic components that I think is so helpful to bring people into awareness around, even if they just think about a past loss slightly differently. Like I said, that 6-year-old woman that I remember, I mean, I never would have thought that would have been something that we were dealing with, and it wasn't even really on her radar, but as soon as I brought it up, she's like, "Okay, I know why this is coming up. I know that I wasn't able I wouldn't have been able to hear the reasoning for this miscarriage 30 years ago. I was just but now, as she was working with this soul, with this energy of that child that was connected to that pregnancy back then, she's like, "Oh, I can really receive this now." So it can take time. That's the thing. I think there's no pressure also for anyone to like understand their miscarriage while they're in it. Certainly when I'm talking about this doesn't necessarily apply to anybody who is like still very much in the physical experience of miscarriage or is still feeling very emotionally connected to a miscarriage in a specific way. I think that sometimes on the other side of it, we can start to understand more, put the pieces together, and really get this love and this clarity from that soul that was connected to that pregnancy.
I don't see this talked about a lot, and I would love to get your take. There is literally like a subreddit that's like alive and not just Reddit. I feel like it's all the apps out there. The trying to conceive window, like that 2-week window, it's not the trying to conceive, it's like the 2-week window
Mhm.
afterwards, after ovulation. I feel like is a anxiety ridden space
Yeah.
for so many women. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like did the spirit baby drop in? Like, what's happening now? Do you have any thoughts about that period of time? Like, what is happening there energetically? Is there something that we should be thinking about? Please.
Yeah. I know. So good. I mean, anyone who's ever been on a fertility journey has, like, Googled at some point, like, 5 days post-ovulation, did what's happening here? Is this going to go that way that I want? And it's so real. And you're right, it is not talked about enough, and I also don't think there's a lot of support for people in that period. Yeah, I completely agree. So, I mean, it is a very here's what I'll say. I think the reason that period is so interesting is because we are in the space of not knowing. Is this gonna be the cycle? Is this gonna be the time? Is my spirit baby coming in now? Are they not? Something I say a lot is that you can feel so close, like so close that like I feel like this is it. This is a cycle. I feel like my spirit baby's gonna come in now. And then you don't get pregnant. And so many people are like, what? Like how? I thought this was the one. And so I always say, like, spirit baby can be right there, they can be ready, they can be close, and it still can not happen on a particular cycle. And so I think what many of us are kind of being asked to do in that period is to find the magic in the mystery. Finding the magic in the mystery. There's mystery in those 2 periods. It's, am I not? Is this gonna happen right now? Is it not? Am I gonna be pregnant in a couple days or am I not? And like you said, I think for most of us, that can feel like very anxiety ridden. Those 2 weeks can be a really difficult period of time. And what the spirit babies have had me reframe over and over again is can you be comfortable in that time with the mystery of will it happen? Will it not? Can you? It's like this real, again, coming back to the word surrender, which is like a big theme again and again in this conversation. But can you be open and available to whatever happens? Can you create the space for the spirit baby to drop in during this cycle if it is right for them? And if it is not, can you be okay with that too? And you can go, okay, yeah, that's, and I can still do things in this time that are supportive to you. I can meditate every day. I can connect with my womb space every day and just like send it love. And I can connect with my spirit baby every day and send them love and say, if this is it, great. If it's not, I respect it and I'm open to whenever it is that you're looking to come in the future. So I think that that's what I have leaned into. That's what I encourage other people to lean into too, is like, how can you be in the magic and the mystery? One of my friends and I talk about this a lot too, of like the 2 week wait or the 2 week window is it's like pregnant with it's like hope. There's so much hope in that time. And that's how I like to reframe it for people too, is like, yes, there is anxiety for sure, but also there's hope in that time. There's possibility in that time. There's opportunity in that time. Yes, it could be. And it could not be as well, but it could be. And so I think that's really beautiful. And what I hear from people too is that they've gone through so many 2 week waits that they're just exhausted. And it's easier for them to just detach. And I think that's a way of finding the magic in the mystery too. I'm detached. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And what I've found as well is that sometimes for people, the cycle that they think is going to happen is the cycle that they think is going to happen. Like it happens on the cycle that they think it is. That's definitely true. But I think for some of us who are being asked to lean into these themes around magic and the mystery and surrender, it happens on these cycles that are we least expect. Yeah. Where it's like, I did not think this was going to be the month, or how did that even happen? Or I didn't even think I ovulated, or this is even possible. Like, literally, like, people are like, "I don't even know how this happened," and that's the cycle it happens on, and so I think that is by design as well. Like, there is teachings available for us, I think, for people on this path at every single checkpoint on this journey, including the 2 week wait. So, it's a great question, and you're right, it's not talked about enough.
I feel like you bring up such an important theme. It was probably like the first note that I wrote down, which is just the energy of surrender that kind of happens with this whole experience. And for the friends that I've spoken with who have gone through the kind of fertility journey and have birthed children, the experience of that word is like a constant in their lives at this point. And I think that is actually part of the journey,
Yeah,
right? That there is so much that we don't know about the body. And as much as we can measure and control and try to create security and safety and knowingness in our lives, like there is this unknown aspect as well. And so I'm just so happy that you mentioned it because it's like that is part of the experience.
it is.
And to cover that note, I'm so happy we did that. Listen, Emily, I could speak with you for hours, truly. Like, I think we got through like 10% of the questions that I had written down, and that's okay. We're going to have to point everyone to your podcast and to your resources to talk about connecting with Spirit Baby. It's because
Yes,
we didn't even get there.
that's okay.
But I would love to have you close by sharing what do you have coming up? I mean, you offer so much to your community on this topic. And so for women out there, especially ones who are like, okay, I'm in. Now
Yeah.
how do I connect with them and where do I find Emily? Please leave us with something.
Absolutely. Yeah, so first of all, thank you. And I do have lots of resources. I try and create as many as I can. I've got guided meditations on my website for all different kinds of things. People who are healing after loss, people who are in the 2 week wait. I have a meditation for the 2 week wait. If people who are single and are looking to work with their spirit babies to call in their partner. So I've got meditations. I also wrote a book on this in 2023, and I cover in the book a lot of the different things that we talked about here, able to go deeper into things like miscarriage and timing windows and all kinds of good stuff. So that's all there. And then in terms of what I have coming up, I have a small group program that I'm running this fall and winter for people at different phases of the journey. What I find is that there's not a lot of community, or the community is like, it's hard to find people who you're able to go deep with who are at similar points in their journey. And so I created this group program for people who are preconception or conception, who are looking to be in community with other people who are also at the same phase. We'll go through all different kinds of cool modules. The modules are specific to each cohort. So I've got like preconception, pregnancy, people who are giving birth in 2025, and then also people who are healing after loss. So that's the big thing that I have going on right now that will start in November. And I'm really excited just to feel like the small group community with people who are with other people who have gone through similar experiences or who are at similar phases on their journey, but they're looking to elevate that experience. They're looking for a new understanding of that experience and something to focus on as well, too, that is more energetic or spiritual in nature. What I hear from a lot of people on this fertility journey is like, I'm so tired of ovulation tracking. Like, I don't want to look at it anymore. I just want to like focus on this. And so I think it's a good outlet for people who need or who are like, okay, I feel like I prepared for my birth a lot, but now I want to actually really connect with my child before birth. So I've created these different cohorts to support people where they're at on their journey, wherever that is.
That is so huge,
Yeah.
especially you talked at the very beginning of this episode how as a woman like birthing, like there is this absolute transformation that is happening and it starts like preconception. And so to have the space and the time and the community to explore that, what a gift. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
Yeah.
Emily, thank you so much. This
Yeah.
was so amazing. Thank you
You.
so, so much for joining us.
Thank you. Beautiful interview. I loved having this conversation with you, and I hope it serves your audience and anybody out here listening to this now or in the future. Just sending so much love to anybody who is on this path, who is calling in a child, wherever you're at on your journey. I hope this brings just whatever it is that those people need.